Women have the power to transform this world. We can end crime and violence if we all agree to do one thing: share. Let's share our wisdom, share our time, share our talents, share our finances, but most of all, let's share our love. This is the female solution.
This is the Solution, and today is Thankful Thursday. Welcome to another edition of Master Force with Mu Shemsu-t. I am Mu Shemsu-t, your host, and today I want to have a conversation with you, sharing some of my life experience. However, I want to have this conversation inside of the conversation called race. So before I start the conversation, let me share a poem with you that I wrote back in 1986. It's called Status One. Envision the sun as love. Often the warm yellow rays permeate the melanin in my skin. The chill that encircles my soul is freely released. The sensation of lightness moves throughout my body. A connection is made. Wholeness is felt. As my efforts become weightless and unconcealed, it lasts only for a short while. A cold stare glance. I am reminded dark skin is not welcomed here. I return to status one to wait for death to make me just like everyone else. Now, that was written in 1986 when I was fully indoctrinated into the conversation, into the programming of race. The program of race is very similar to the program that we have experienced also with religion. And I know most people think that I'm talking about the concerns that we should have about other races. I'm not talking about that. I want us to look at the conversation that we have about race because it's one that has poisoned us and kept us in a very low vibration. So before I actually get into some of the stories, I want us to look at the difference between being a racist and racism itself. So, a person who is a racist is one that believes in their own race to be superior to another race, right? Better than, greater than, whatever that is. And they tend to have a way of treating other people differently because of that, based on race, based on color. So, you can think of colorism and race as the same program. However, racism itself is an institutional mechanism to try to imply those places of power to suppress and oppress individuals who are distinguished or actually recognized based on their skin color. You have many other cultures, not just in America, that tend to create a conversation around race. But what I want us to do is I want us to really examine how this is a program because this program keeps us on a low vibration. One of the ways that it does that is because we have been taught that Black people cannot be racist, right? But if racism, based on this, is that you believe that your race is better, and I do know I think that about my race, but not in comparison to anybody else, right? But I do think my race. I'm very proud to be Black. And I don't mean proud as in better than. I mean proud that grateful that I was born into this skin. However, I was actually raised to be a racist. And, I lived in a house with a grandmother that was from Mississippi. And when my grandmother told me the stories about how white people treated her and how when she would walk down the street, if a white person was walking on the sidewalk, she'd have to step off the curb, and how white people would spit towards her, not necessarily on her, but towards her when they saw her. And, just the many stories. I didn't know white people growing up because I lived in a Black community, but her stories infuriated me. So I had a conversation about white people. Had never met one, never seen one in my community other than if they were the police or something like that, right? When I went to college, I went to a predominantly white college in Lamars, Iowa, and I am so glad that I did because I had already experienced being in a Black community. Now to go into this predominantly white school, Methodist church, right? And gain an understanding of my own ability to lead and hear and influence. I ended up writing an article when I was the editor of the school newspaper called I Am a Racist. Now, you can imagine how many people were, first of all, they were thrown that a Black person, a Black woman, would write such an article. I wrote the article to explain that I was raised to be a racist. However, because of who I am and what I have learned about people, I realized that race did not distinguish whether a person was going to be good to you or bad to you. And so, for many of my experiences, because I had always thought that white people were going to be bad because they were white, I would knock myself out of some opportunities because that was a white person. Oh, I'm white. And then I would put myself into some opportunities because this is a Black person, right? So, one of the things that I had to say to myself is that there's something happening here that I need to study. And I said that to myself, but when you say things to yourself, your the universe is listening. Look at higher learning. Higher learning said, my grandma said some of the same things, not much in the mindset of humanity, unfortunately, until today. Thanks for sharing. Thank you, higher learning. And that's really what this is about because we are missing opportunities because we have been trained to think that if we do something with a white person or like a white person, then there's something wrong. Now, let me give you another example. Now, here I have been living in Iowa for 10 years. I had been the minority affairs advisor for 6 of those years at the college that I went to. So when I had the opportunity to apply for an assistant director at Carlin Shar Institute in Schaumburg, I came to Schaumburg, Illinois to interview, got hired for the job, moved my family from Iowa to Chicago, right? I mean, to Schaumburg, got an apartment, everything set, ready to go for the September start date. The Friday before I was to start, the director called me and said, "Oh, you know what? We found someone that could really, really teach you how to make the computer sing." And I'm thinking, why would I need the computer to sing? And she kept going on and she said, and I asked her, well, what's the concern about the computer? She said, well, we hired her to actually be the assistant director, and we want you to be the instructor. And I thought, really? Because my qualifications were not to be a computer instructor. My qualifications were to be able to counsel and support young people or people who are looking to make transitions in their life. So, I took the job anyway. right? I said, okay, I'll do this. Now, the problem is that she said, because you're going to be the instructor, your pay is going to be $9,000 a year instead of 14,000. Now remember, this was back in '86. Okay, so yeah, right. So, and I'm thinking, what? But in my mind, I said, okay, I'm gonna say yes because I I have this apartment. I gotta be here, and then I can find a job once I start. I go to that job on Monday or Tuesday of that next week, and come to find out that the woman that they actually found to take my role that I had been offered was blonde hair and blue eyes. Now, did I tell you that this institution was Black owned? It was a Black owned institution, right? It was a Black owned institution. And the person that interviewed and hired me was my cousin. So I did not expect that that would happen. I did not expect it at all. So I went that day, and this woman starts telling me, "Oh, this is how you do the computer. This is how you." And I had some computer training. I went to college. I didn't have a degree in computers, but I took a lot of computer classes until I changed my major. But anyway, she was teaching me, but I had so much resentment. I had so much anger because of what had happened with me. And so I told her, I said, I can't hear anything that you're trying to teach me right now because I have so much resentment. And I said, we really need to talk. So at lunchtime, we went for a walk. And I told her exactly what happened. And she said, what? She said, they're paying me 18,000. And she said, my degree is in journalism and mine was in communication. She has a BA. Her daddy was an oil man in Texas. So here I was set up, moved from Iowa, set up by a Black institution. That was my cousin. Now, it wouldn't have been a problem until I found out that it was a fraudulent institution. And just because of who I am, and it wasn't any malicious intent at all, but they were hurting the students. So, we took action. And that's a long story. I won't go into that story. My entire family went against me. And they said that I should be ashamed of what I did. And not only should I be ashamed, but I owed my cousin an apology. Now, mind you, I didn't have a job now because, of course, they didn't want me to work for them after that. But I also had death threats. I had threats, many threats. And I felt very alone at the time. Now, most people wouldn't think that was racism because we've been taught that racism can only happen with white people. But that was a racist move, and that was racism. And I want us to try to remember that part of our work is to get a clearer understanding of what racism is. Now, I have come to appreciate that racism is a form of evil. Why do I say that? There is a book by M. Scott Peck, and he wrote this book called The People of the Lie, right? The People of the Lie. And what it talks about evil. Evil is the use of power to destroy the spiritual growth of others for the purpose of defending and preserving the integrity of the sick self. Now, he says sick self, but I actually realize and recognize that in society, it's more about being able to control a certain category of people so that others can be superior and control the power, right? It's we're still in some form of slavery until we understand that the power is within us. When the power isn't within us, nobody can control us, really. Our freedom, we're sovereign. We're sovereign in the world, in the spirit. We're sovereign. But because we have been taught to be inside this conversation of race and religion, we have given our power away. So when we look at the definition of evil, and then there's another definition that he also states, and that is evil is the unwillingness to extend oneself for the benefit of another person. In other words, I'm not going to do anything for you. I'm not going to do anything for you, right? I'm not going to do anything for you. And that's what it is when people do that. They say, I'm unwilling to do anything for you. And that's what the country, that's what the society has created. Here's what's interesting. Only 8% of the population is Caucasian. The only reason they have power over us is because we still adhere to the program. And we want to look and see why we do that. So when we talk about what is evil, goodness promotes life, complexity, and growth, but evil promotes death, simplification, and control. It seeks to kill the spirit or the potential of others to keep them under control. And that's what racism has become, and that's what we're talking about. So I want us to move away from talking about racism as color and look at racism as this control tool so that we're not feeding into it. So we're not allowing ourselves to be controlled by colorism and making decisions about how we're going to do something based on skin color, but more based on other people's intentions. And you know how you can tell a person's intention without judgment from their color? From your gut. We've been given compasses inside of our body. We have the Holy Trinity within. We have our soul, we have our spirit, and we have our consciousness. And so we have to feel from within, is this something I should do with this person? And instead of looking at it from a source of color, we can look at it from what our gut is telling us. Now, the reason that we want to do that is because right now we're in a detriment, huge detriment. I just heard a conversation the other day that said that the owner of the largest book publishing company, the owner of that company is who? I don't know if you guys have been watching the Epstein files or whatever that conversation is. But he had an accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. Her father owned the largest publishing company in the United States, McGraw-Hill in Illinois. Now, do you think he owned those books to teach us anything? And every book was distributed in the schools in the United States. Now, let me see what Naima's saying. Naima says, many Black people have been brainwashed to think white people are smarter. Yes, they automatically think white people should be an authority over Blacks. Yes, they do. Automatically. I work for many companies where I'm sitting there watching people promote and move folks forward that have to come to me in secret and ask for the solution. That's what made me start my own business. That's exactly what made me start my own business. And higher learning says, teach, sis, come on. Many don't trust their gut because they have not been taught. That's right. They have not been taught. Matter of fact, we've been taught to ignore ourselves. We've been taught to ignore ourselves. When I heard about the McGraw-Hill and Ghislaine Maxwell's father owning these, I I I shudder to think. And he gained ownership of that in 1988. And if you remember, the schools, our children have been what? They've been getting less educated. I look at children now, and all they know how to do is follow instructions. They can't even tap into the thinking for themselves. Many of them. Now, some of the ones that hang out in my field, yeah, you have to think for yourself. But what I would like us to remember is that we have a collective power and we have a collective frequency. Now, I want you to notice something. We've given that collective frequency over to gathering in the churches. That's a frequency, and they use that energy. We have to do that for ourselves. Do you know that we can come together in our own living room with our children, with our parents, with whoever? We can come together and we have an example of what it is to develop internal power, because that was the example that Jesus taught. And we want to act like once the Bible was written, God quit talking. God still talks to us, every single one of us. That's what spirit is. That's what aligns us. We're all spiritual beings. The color of my skin, this is just a skin suit. I don't care what color you are. Now, because that color or the other colors have been indoctrinated to think that they have something better than us, we have to make sure that we don't push back on that, because I don't have to convince you I'm smart. I have to convince myself that I am capable and I don't have to depend on that system. So we need to take ourselves away from the system. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. But what I want us to really kind of look at some of the stories that you've been told about race and racism. And I want you to understand that the conversation of being a racist, it creates a frequency of resistance. And if you're resisting anything, you're making it grow. What you resist persists. I learned that at Landmark back in 1993. What you resist persists. But what have we been taught to do by the esteemed Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King? Protest. Protest is a frequency of resistance. So you're creating so much drama that it creates so much drama that it just gets bigger, it gets bigger. And this is what we're used for. We're used for our juice. And the sad part about it is we give it over so freely because we think we're making a difference. But what we're doing is we're sabotaging ourselves on so many levels. We're cutting ourselves off from the universe, from God, from source energy that's always providing for us. God, no respecter of person. Whatever vibration you send out, that's the vibration you're going to get back. I don't care what color you are. I don't care how much money you have. Now, the difference is many of them have learned how to what? How to usurp the karma. Because they don't believe that they're lying. They don't be, as long as I tell you what I'm doing, and that's why the Simpson stories and all that. We told you we were going to do that. We showed you the movie. So there, we didn't lie. We didn't deceive you. We told you. So that's how they usurp the system so that they don't get penalized at the spirit level. But many of us, we have this wholesomeness. We have this, we're the real people. We are foundational to the earth. When we stand barefoot on the ground, the frequency comes through us and we magnetize the earth. That's not true for other cultures. They don't have that same connection. Now, I recently found out that they don't have that connection because they are now foundational to the earth. Only the originals are foundational to the earth. There are many that were cloned and brought in here, right? They were cloned and dropped into the United States, other countries for the mix. You know, we need to do something. But then after they were dropped in here, they wanted to take over. And that's why they had to create these programs. So many of them, so many of them. But the main one that has us in a trap is the one called race and the one called religion. We have given our power away because we let someone else tell us who we are. Higher Learning says, Naima is correct. Old slave mentality. Old slave mentality. How many of us realize that we have old slave mentality? I mean, to the point that we won't even support another Black person. We can see somebody doing something. I can give you an example. I had a friend call me and say, "Oh, I want to refer a client to you because I think you can really do some work with her." You know, it's okay, yeah, sure. So I got on the phone and I always do an assessment and and I said, well, let me know when you want to start some services. Heard back that she found a young white coach and paid this woman $3,000, and this woman was coaching her through AI, through putting in her problems and telling her what to do with AI. Yeah. And this was a sister friend, right? Teach, sis. Come on, Higher Learning. Many don't trust their gut because they had, oh yeah, I said that one. All right. But this is really, thanks to you, we are all learning better. That's the part I didn't read. Are we learning? Because some of us have been taught to not trust each other either. We don't trust the gut, but we don't trust each other. And this is detrimental to us. Very detrimental. And I am really requesting that we take a look at ourselves, that we bring back the energy to, first of all, the sovereignty of who we are as an individual. Then we bring back the sovereignty of who our families are. And we start teaching inside that realm. What Higher Learning is saying, teaching our families how to trust. We have to do that not through lecture, but through example. Are you trustworthy? Are you someone that can be trusted? And do people in your life demonstrate that they have examples of that? Now, here's what's interesting. Most of us harp on the bad things that have happened in our life, but I want you to write 10 amazing things that you're grateful for, that you're thankful for, that have happened in your life. And I want you to really look and see, Even if you came through a family that was challenging, what were the challenging things that gave you strength for today? What were those things that they did that has helped you to be a better person? What are those things? And I want you to really kind of look and see, are you using that? Are you using what you've been taught? But start off with 10 things that have made a difference. And then we'll come back and talk about some other solutions after this commercial break. Thank you.
Have you ever felt called to start a nonprofit but had no idea where to begin? Or maybe you're already pouring your own time, energy, and money into a cause you care deeply about, but you know you could make a bigger impact with the right support. Imagine having a team behind you. Imagine being able to secure funding. Imagine scaling your mission so you can reach more people and change more lives. That's exactly what this training is designed to help you do. We've taken the entire process of launching a nonprofit and broken it down into 7 simple steps, including how to obtain your 501c3 status, how to use it effectively, and how to stay in compliance so your organization continues to thrive. You will walk away organized, confident, and most importantly, grant ready. Register now at 501c3startuptraining.eventbrite.com. That's 501c3 startuptraining.eventbrite.com.
I apologize for that commercial, although I'm glad that was that commercial, because that's exactly what we need to be doing, starting organizations to reach our children, to reach our families. Now, that training happened in December, but I want you to know that it's ongoing. There are ongoing programs. So you want to listen to the podcast that happens where it's talked about. So I apologize that I actually clicked on the wrong one. Anyway, still think about it. What can you do to support your community, and how do you start a 501c3? And then go ahead and get that information and contact them and see if they have another training or if they have some other programs that you can participate in. So, all right. So now here's something that I want to point to about the strengthening inside ourselves and how we have taken ourselves out of the conversation of spiritual leadership, right? Spiritual leadership. You're not going to find spiritual leadership going to church every Sunday, because those messages usually are for seekers. They're for people who are just getting started or need to find a church home or something like that. It's not for people who are seasoned and have a genuine relationship with God or with source energy, right? Or with the creator, with the whatever name you call it, Allah, whatever, is still an energy that is straight up and down. All right. That's how the cross was formed, straight up and down. You get energy from the sun that is going to heal and nurture and support you. And then you're going to cultivate that energy within you, and you're going to send it out to others. That's the cross. You bring it down within yourself, you cultivate it. And how do you cultivate it? You can cultivate it through meditation, affirmations, relaxation, visualization. It's an inside job. And when you have that spiritual strength, then you can stretch out and reach out to others. That's the cross. And it's not something to bear. It really is who we've come. We've come to actually season life, season the earth, season others. through who we are. But if you're not looking to see that your soul, right? Your soul, that's one trinity. The soul has the the our personality, our life, the lives that we lived before is that soul. That's the individual soul. But spirit is in everything and in everybody. It's all over. You can see it everywhere. We connect to everyone through spirit. And then there's the consciousness. There's what I see, what I can observe. That's the Trinity. Now we study this in comedic sciences. We're taught about Osir, being the ultimate visual, right? The ultimate being, right? So that we are light. We're giving light to others because we've been filled with that light. It doesn't make us better. It just means we've been receptive. We've been more receptive, and we've used that receptivity to cultivate ourselves. And then we use that energy to heal our own soul. Our souls are crying to be nurtured and supported. What pain is there? We talk about the healing of our ancestors. If you're not nurturing your soul, then you're not tapping into your ancestors, because our ancestor is the soul, it's the lineage of our soul. And that's where we have to do that work. Naima, we spend a lot of energy protesting when people don't promote us to position of authority on jobs, when we could just decide to start our own business and have the authority we're begging others to give us. Yes, yes, yes. Why are you saying that? Why do you beg to sit at the seat of someone else's table? We don't need to do that. If we would just sit, I was talking to a young brother that I mentored the other day, and I said, just sit for a moment. Just sit still for a moment. Just sit with yourself and see what shows up. Stop trying to impress people. Stop trying to buy favor from folks. You have everything within you. And the ability to start a job or to start a business now is much easier than what it was when I started 35 years ago. And I'm telling you, 35 years ago, and still very few of my community support what I've been doing. But I do know that this is needed. I'm not doing what I do for applause. People might not know who I am for 100 years. I'm doing what I came here to do. I signed up for this mission, and I'm committed to it because it's who I am. It's who my soul cultivated me. It's what my ancestors have worked through to provide and support me through. So I don't need to ask somebody, hey, will you fund this? No. Because if you've been given a mission, if you've been given a vision, all you have to do is sit and be still and be receptive to what's coming to you. And like Sister Queen Naima said, we protest because we don't get what we want. That's a complete waste of energy, because you're not going to get anything from protesting, because it's a resistance. Resistance pushes things away. We are magnetic, and especially as women. The solution for women is to increase your magnetism. And how do you increase your magnetism? Through health. You have to be very healthy, right? And you don't have to have perfect health, but you want to have demonstrated to your soul that you understand your own worth and value. Most people measure their worth and value by how much somebody pay them. Mm-mm. Your soul has to recognize that you understand your worth and value by how you treat yourself. Do you know most of us won't even take time to make sure that we're eating correctly? We just grab something. Let me just grab this. Let me just. Mm-mm. You're communicating. I'm too busy to look after what's important. You're important. And not because someone else says so, but because you are. But if you don't recognize that, if you don't put in the energy to sustain the power that you are, then you're not nurturing those ancestors. You're still feeding into outside. So self-love looks like good food, rest, proper rest. My friends still laugh at me because, they call, well, I'm in the bed at 8 o'clock. Well, in Chicago, it's 7 o'clock. Well, my phone goes to do not disturb at 9 p.m. So that's 8. I'm asleep. Why? Because according to circadian rhythm, at 11 o'clock, your body begins, 11 p.m., your body begins to detox. It resets you. It heals you. It nurtures you. So that's the best time to sleep. Between 11 and 2 a.m., that work is going on. And sure enough, at 3 o'clock, my eyes go, whoop, whoop, whoop. Yes, I'm at the bed at 4. Now, that's what I mean by example. We have to be living examples so people can see what works. That doesn't make me better than anybody. That doesn't make me special. It doesn't make me anything but disciplined. Right? And some people, discipline comes easier than others. So some of us have to work at it a little better. And then you want to exercise. You want to make sure you move every day. You want to make sure that either you're walking, you're tai chiing, you're yogaing, you're jumping rope, you're swimming. Something. Your body requires movement. Your soul requires care. So when you demonstrate to your body that it's loved and appreciated, that's sending a message to your soul that you understand your worth. And now, when you have those components working together, you'll see that more doors are open. More things will become they become easier because you have a frequency, right? A frequency that is less resistant. Now, one of the other things that we can also have a challenge in is that we think we can complain ourselves. We can complain to someone. We can complain, and that's going to change things. We can complain until somebody fix it. But guess what? If it showed up in your face, in your space, it's your responsibility. Now, that's grown folks talk right there, right? Because most of us do not want to respond effectively to things. We want to complain. Our response is to, who's going to do something about this? You. And that's how life is for us. It's a beautiful thing. It's a powerful thing. We are sovereign beings. We are strong. We are capable. We are brilliant. We are bold and we are beautiful. And we have a whole world trying to make us think that we are not. And if we keep looking over there trying to ask them what they think about us, that's the mistake that we make. We don't need to make that mistake anymore. What we're needing to do and what we're responsible for is delivering ourselves as sovereign beings. That's where we can serve from. That's where our abundance can come from. If you are in a leadership role and you're still practicing principles of lack, here's an opportunity to say, wait a minute, why am I looking over there at what I don't have? Let me see what the increase is. It's the same energy. You can look at what you don't have, or you can look at where the increase is. You can even ask the universe, where's my increase? How can I generate cash flow? Where are ideas that I can reach more people? That's where a true partnership is. Our true partnership, when we're sovereign beings, is actually the alignment that we have with the universe, with God. And the part of religion that have taken us away from that relationship is the factor they put the worship chip in us. Instead of actually being in partnership with God, we've been taught to worship God. But then in that worship, we were taught about Santa Claus, white beard, white man, right? All of those worshiping, the preacher's white, Jesus is white. All of those are myths. I don't know if you saw the other day, but Putin, he brought out a picture of Jesus, opened it up, Black Jesus, Black Jesus all over the place. Black Jesus, he had pictures of Black Jesus every place. But many of us still think that Jesus was a white person. Regardless to whether it was a myth or not, the fact is we think that that was a white person. And so in our mind, we're still not seeing ourselves as the powerful source that we've been created to be. Now, the other part of that is, oh, wait a minute. Naima said, I love what Naima talked. Naima says, when we understand the principle you're teaching, we'll stop complaining about the U.S. president and organize with our local communities to create everything we need. Absolutely. When people try to talk to me about the president, he doesn't live in my house. Have nothing to do with me. None of the presidents I was not affected by any president that had other than my opinion about it. That's it. No effect. And literally in 1999, I saw, man, people will go out of their way to help a homeless person. Nothing wrong with that. But they can see a leader who's doing their best to make a difference and will not support that person. So I started getting up under people who were leaders. I would go to people and say, how can I support you? Now, when you say that to some people, they think you want something, right? So they, in our community, how can I support you? What do you need to do with the next thing that you're doing? How can I give my energy so that you can be successful in what you do? Now, many people, and I'm grateful that I've had the opportunity to do that. But a lot of those times, again, because of how we've been trained to think in our community, reciprocity doesn't show up. They gone. Don't even come back and say, oh man, that helped, that made a difference. Not that they even need to do that. But I also have a business that they could have supported. And this is what Naima is pointing to. If we get together within our own community and provide support and nurturing and encouragement, whatever that looks like. We've been, and hats off to all of the sisters, and we have a few brothers too, with the Female Solution, who have been working diligently to support Mama Africa over there on 71st Street. I used to live right there on Merrill until I moved to Detroit 2 years ago. Mama Africa store. The community is what's needed. And I believe that's what the universe is really working to teach us right now. It's not the individual that's being empowered, it's the unity of the people. Can you influence your community, your people to come together and support and make a difference on a project? This is what we're called to do. So let us get away from all of the conversation that we have about what this person did and that person did because of their color. And if you say that you're not a racist, the fact that you can see a racist mean that you have racist tendencies, right? And I'm talking about the tendency to hurt people or withdraw yourself from people based on race. Sometimes you can be blessed to just because of where you are in that moment. I had this one guy. When I went to college, and you've heard the story about my family not supporting that, but at the end of my freshman year, I was asking my family to send me money so I can come home on the bus, and nobody had any money to bring me home. And this white guy said, "Hey, I'll drive you home." Now he lived in Iowa, but he said, "I'll drive you back to Chicago." And then he asked this other friend of ours who lived in New York to ride with us. And then he was just going to catch the bus from Chicago and go to New York. So they drove me to Chicago. Nice, fun trip. And before he got back on the road, I said, "Well, why don't you take a nap, lay on the couch, take a nap, and get some rest?" My grandmother came in the house. She said, "Get that white MF off of my couch." I had to laugh so hard. I didn't laugh then because I was very embarrassed. I didn't know she was, and that was my insensitivity. That man had to get up and go. He had to get up and go. But fortunately, I had a parent who said I could bring him over to her house, and so we went over there. And not a parent, how your community. Because I didn't have parents, I called mama and daddy, Carradine, my parents. So we went over there, and he was able to rest. But this is what I'm talking about. And I understand her, really. I didn't hold that against her. I did then. But, because of what she went through when she was in Mississippi, that's that what is it, PST? What is it, PTSD? Right. So that probably struck her like, he can't be in my house. But that's not true now. That's not true now. And I do want to make a point about something. I'm not against interracial relationships, but I want us to be clear about something. The morals of certain cultures are not the same as ours. The things that people do in certain households, we don't do those things with our children. We don't eat those kind of things. We don't do. So when you bring those cultures into your family and you don't understand the background that they come from, that's dangerous. And that's not a conversation called race or racism. Those are cultural differences. So you want to be mindful bringing other cultures into your home because they do different things. Just like people who study different religions, and you bring them into your house and they're looking at your children suspiciously. You want to be careful, mindful, and you'll know whether this is a safe place to move by what? Your gut. You will know by your gut. And this is the importance of studying yourself, getting to know yourself, being mindful that you are a sovereign being. Everything that you require is within you, or you can magnetize yourself to the point to bring it to you. And that is the power of the female solution. I hope you've gotten something from this conversation. And I just wanted to really share my experience because when I tell you my objective is to become a loving being, just a loving being. I want to share love. I want to receive love. I want to make a difference in people's lives. I want to experience the joy of living. And that's how I honor God. That's how I honor life itself. That's how I honor my ancestors. And that's how I honor my family. And let's move away from letting people pull us into protests. No protesting. If you want to make a change, sit down. And if you can get 2 or 3 other people to sit down with you where 2 or more are gathered, you can multiply the effect of your vision. And that's what we're doing this week. So you've been with Master Force with the Mu Shemsu-t, and I will see you next week with another powerful conversation. Thank you, everyone, for joining me. Let me check some last messages. She took her anger at white people from her past, yes, out on that man who may not have ever hurt Black people, right? That's why older Black people were against interracial marriages. That's right. That's exactly why they were against it, because of the pain that they experienced. Yes, I totally agree with that. And I overstand it, and I choose not to live like that, right? I choose not to live like that. So thank you. And thank you for all the comments and for helping me move this conversation along. You know, this is one of those like, whew, we have to say it because somebody have to say it. All right. See you guys next week. Thank you.
Leaders of nonprofits empowering worlds. Let's go.
But the vision that God gave me, I felt that it was time for me to step out and work on the vision that God gave me.
We need look no further. We have a unique voice. We have a unique talent pool.
We've come to the end of our show today. If you missed any broadcasts, go to our website for the audio and video archives at www.thefemalesolution.com. On behalf of our team of radio hosts, I'd like to thank all of you who participated in today's discussions. And to our global family joining us from all around the world, we say thank you. To our family in China, xie xie. India, Dhanyavad. Japan, arigato. Korea, kamsamnida. Russia, spasiba. Germany, danke. Poland, dziękuję. France, merci. Spain, gracias. Italy, grazie. Egypt, shukran. Ghana, madasi. Nigeria, eshe. South Africa, ngiyabonga. Senegal, jareh. Kenya, asante. Israel, toda. Pakistan, shukriya. Afghanistan, tashakur. Saudi Arabia and Palestine, shukran. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. Thank you, and may peace be upon you and the mercy of God and God's blessings.